The war cost a lot of money and the United States went into huge debt.
No money, GG.
I got this.
Daybok.
With his plan, Hamilton tried to pay back the national debt. Unfortunately, the southern states began to complain.
I'll give you DC if you abide the law.
Deal.
Then, the US economy boomed with the introduction of the cotton gin.
Yeah, man, working so hard, man.
Cotton gin, no more seed picking.
Really? No more work for me?
Ja. No, you gotta go plant the seeds now.
However, the cotton gin was only the start of the industrial age in America, as more and more inventions were introduced into the economy. With the increasing population, Americans sought out new land and new opportunities.
We.
With the tension between Britain and France at its height, the winds of war blew to America in 1807 when British ship Leopard sunk the American ship in Chesapeake.
Revenge.
Thus, Jefferson passed the Embargo Act of 1807, which hurt the American economy severely.
No.
Granted with another charter by Congress in 1817, the Second Bank of the United States was a success.
3.
She took my money. Well, I'm in need. Oh, she's a gold there. Way over time.
Initially, the Second U.S. Bank failed to serve its purpose. However, in 1823, when Nicholas Biddle became the president of the bank, it regained its function, until Jackson.
National Bank, you're down.
Jackson began to kill off the bank in any way possible.
I smell tariff.
The major issues during this time period were the tariffs.
Protective tariffs, manufacturing, internal improvements. Boom! Money. I'm out.
The protective tariffs divided the North and the South. People called nullies urged that the states had the right to nullify federal laws that went against the state's constitution.
Force bill. I got the power.
Like a banana, Jackson seemed pro-state, but was actually direct to the Constitution.
I'll lower the tariffs in the period of 20 years. Fine.
The nullification crisis concluded with Henry Clay's compromise. Now the West was full of promising wealth, with an effective transportation system.
I'm working on the railroad.
Americans declared independence from Great Britain. At first, this young nation was neither powerful nor fully independent. At this point, countries didn't respect this weakly centralized new nation.
You mean land? Oh, shit.
In result, to resolve the Articles of Confederation, the Americans sought out a new compromise.
Equal representation for all states.
Representation based on population.
Great compromise.
Then, soon after, political parties began to form.
We are the wealthy people who live in the coast. We are federalists. We support strong central governments and we support Constitution.
Our small farmers in the West. We are anti-federalists. We oppose the Constitution.
Ratify the Constitution.
Let's have the Bill of Rights and I'll ratify it.
Then, in the election of 1800, the Federalists lost big in the election due to the Alien and Sedition Acts and the unpopular new taxes. Later on, events showed that leading politicians were virtuous enough to expand to the western frontier.
Sell Louisiana Territory for $15 million. Deal?
Deal.
After the War of 1812, the American government, along with James Monroe, pushed towards policies against the foreign countries.
Nancy Adams, write a doctrine for me.
About what, Mr. President?
I'm sick of European nations trying to keep colonizing other countries.
Indeed.
Just write that they can't colonize Latin American countries. Let's pretend like we are protecting Latin American countries, but it's really to protect us.
As tensions over territory increased between the United States and New Mexico, conflicts began to rise in Texas.
Let's push towards the manifest destiny of push towards the western frontiers.
We Texas wants independence.
Pronto, señor, pronto a Texas.
No, Texas will declare independence as an individual state.
As people started to develop their own culture, many reform movements occurred that pushed towards a utopian community. Jackson, as a president who was known as a common man, allowed people to become more aware of their rights and petition against any injustice that the government imposed. In addition, they first started by uplifting the morals and the qualities of society.
I want some education.
Universal education for all.
Then, there was a temperance movement that denounced intemperance and violence provoked by alcohol. As women had more leisure time and paid more attention to how they were being treated, they began to gather supports and protest against the fact that men relegated them to secondary roles and prevented them to participate in any political discussions.
Go to the kitchen and make me a sandwich, woman.
No.
We want our rights!
Along with abolitionists who fought against injustice in women's rights, abolitionists and slavery were encouraged by the Second Great Awakening to view slavery as a
Go to work, you slave.
We want our rights.
Later on, as religious revival swept through the United States during the early decades of the 19th century, they were partly a reaction against the rationalism that marked the Age of Enlightenment. Then, Calvinist teachings of original sin and predestination were rejected by believers in a more liberal and forgiving doctrines as religion became more centralized.
My child, if you are loyal to God right now and pay your debt to Jesus, then you will go to heaven.
I will choose to do what I believe.
Con los terroristas.
And do the Harlem Shake.